We've discussed already milestones of the year, because as we plan the next to know whither we go, we have to understand whence we came. Did we actually do something? Was it a year of phenomenal achievement, fun things, exciting things, energetic things, or was it something desultory that we better best forget? Now, through the entire aspect, for a quick reminder, because sometime one forgets because it's done, so we take it in our stride. So here's a quick recap, let's call it that. Now we put together a list of 20 things, and here's number one on your screens. India in 2023 became the world's 5th largest economy with the highest growth rate in the world. So the largest growth rate in the world is India. We achieved that in 2023. And the 5th largest economy, you know, we made it there. Now, the second point of which list that we've put together, the new Parliament building, which is inaugurated in May of 2023. There you have it just before the inauguration ceremony. Then, ladies and gentlemen, was the inauguration, and this is just a building not of significance as much to the Parliament, but this was where the G20 was hosted. Now, the Bharat Mandapam. It is not just a building, it's a signal of intent. I've seen this building from inside, and it's a signal of intent. Come on, all the biggest meetings, symposiums, events, bilaterals, multilaterals are going to happen in India. We became in 2023, and point number 4, the fastest country in the world to roll out 5G. 130 million subscribers in just 14 months in a rollout pan-India. In a completely epic game-changing maneuver. We, of course, in 2023 successfully landed the Chandrayaan. So the first nation to successfully land a lander on the south pole of the moon. It happened in 2023. We once again in 2023 topped the globe in digital payments, recording 147% growth. Our defense production in 2023 crossed a record high. Something remarkably important has happened. I don't need to remind you, as I've already mentioned it, point number 8 on your screens, the G20 leadership, which culminated in 2023 with that grand summit that took place in the Bharat Mandapam in India. It culminated in a deal which many people thought would never happen. Now, this happened just recently. So, in just the past few days, the world's largest center for diamonds and jewelry inaugurated on 17 December, the diamond burst in Surat. That happened in 2023. Also in 2023, the Parliament passed the women's reservation bill for 33% quota. The implementation happens in a couple of years. But the matter has now become law. Yeah, very much. This happened this year. The Supreme Court in 2023 closed the chapter on Article 370 and the various appeals that had been filed. So that happened. And literally just hours ago, the Assam Ulfa Peace Accord has been signed. A large part of Ulfa is going to be demobilizing. They're going to be shutting down their part of the organization, not the entirety of it, but it's a big success. The Sensex crossed 70,000 for the first time on December 12th. This happened in 2023. The merchant vessel MV Ganga, the first cruise and the world's longest river cruise from Varanasi to Dibrugarh in Assam, was flagged off in January of 2023. If you haven't seen it, well, you must. India in 2023 launched the first national quantum mission devoted to quantum technology. On yet another note, and point number 16, we put it in the list, we won 2 Oscars in 2023. The RRR song and The Elephant Whisperers won those 2 Oscars for India. Also in 2023, this E20, which is ethanol 20% gasoline, this was launched in 2023 for the first time. It's a game changer for a highly fuel-dependent, oil-dependent country. Ladies and gentlemen, we won the historic number of medals at the Asian Games in 2023. And also in 2023, the now privatized Air India has signed record deals for almost 500 aircraft. That's nearing $100 billion worth of aircraft from the major global aircraft manufacturers. That happened in 2023. And also, we had the notable last point of having built 100 kilometers of highways in the country within 100 hours. A kilometer an hour of highways were built in that special record-breaking feat that happened in 2023. Now, that's the list that we've drawn up. We are putting out under our hashtag and our Twitter handles on Facebook, on Instagram, this list for you to choose what you think the biggest moment of 2023 was. So you can find that on our social media handles. And I'm also going to go across to our guests for their lists, some of which are from the list and some of which are even beyond the list, because our guests felt that many more things happened that we should have also included. So let's open up this conversation. Professor Madhav Nalapat, Editorial Director of the Sunday Guardian, joining us on the broadcast. Major General Dhruv Katoch is with us, Ambassador Baswati Mukherjee with us, Sumit with us, and Dr. Sharad Kohli with us. Professor Madhav Nalapat, what's your list, sir? What's your top 5?
Well, look, Rishabh, it's very difficult to make a choice. As you correctly said, it's been an extremely eventful year. A year that basically showcases that the process of transformation for which the country has been working for 5 or 6 years has finally gone into the takeoff stage. Over the next 3 or 4 years, it will go into what I would call a high orbital stage. For me, for example, I was delighted to see the fact that the Ram Mandir was completed without any real communal incidents taking place. And it just reinforces my belief that we are all Bhartiyas and we are all united. We all celebrate. When any one community celebrates, every other community celebrates. And I'm reminded, for example, of the Christmas function that was held at the Prime Minister's house just a few days ago as a symbol of that. I'd also like to say that the moon mission, yes, and the moon mission, I'm not asking this as somebody from India, as a proud lifelong citizen of India, quickly had declined several other citizenships because I'm committed to this country. It is basically showing that the global South is capable of the highest levels of technology. That is what this mission is all about. Then the confidence I'm seeing in youth. 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I talked to youth in Hyderabad, in Bangalore, in Chennai, in Mysuru. They were not very they were unhappy. They were looking at startups, they were brilliant people, and they were finding so many obstacles in their way in putting that startup into operation. So many deliberately created obstacles, especially by foreign competitors who did not want to be replaced by brilliant young Indian minds. Today, that atmosphere is gone. The youth are confident. The startups are now being begun with confidence. And now, for the first time, I would say, funding is now becoming available for really good ignited minds. It's not just having an ignited mind. You need to fuel that mind through money. And in a situation where you're unknown, the money has to come from venture capital, has come from banks. That money is now started to come. And then I would say, for example, this entire concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam that Prime Minister Modi, instilled into us in India. And then it was realized that when he talks about India first, what he means is India first in making sure that the entire world develops. Because India cannot really, talk about success or development unless the entire global South develops, and through the global South developing, the entire world develops.
Okay.
So, and of course, the very importantly, again going back to the G20, the fact that there was a unanimous declaration. I would say 999 out of 1,000 analysts, possibly even smaller as a number, never believed that there would be a unanimous declaration
Yeah.
in the face of the Russian-Ukraine war, in the face of tensions between China and other countries. There was a unanimous declaration.
Okay.
And that showed India's ability to be the uniter, to be
Okay.
the bridge builder.
Okay, so no communal incidents the entire year related to the Ram Mandir, even though the construction was happening. The moon mission, which showed India as a technological leader, bridging divides in the G20 through the communique, through that unanimous communique, youth confidence coming up in the country through startup and startup funding, and of course this Vishwa Mitra Vasudeva Kutumbakam approach. These are the top 10 pivotal moments for Professor Madhav Nalapat for 2023. Let's hop across to Ambassador Baswati Mukherjee. Ambassador Baswati Mukherjee, you agree on the G20 one. In fact, that's the top of your list.
Well, being an ex-diplomat, I suppose I can be forgiven for doing that. I actually, in my list, would put India's G20 presidency and the rolling out by consensus as early as the morning of the second day of the meeting, of a highlight of India's global stature. My second point is the successful way in which we managed the economic fallout of the Russia-Ukraine conflict for the good of the Indian economy without breaking sanctions, without breaking internal highly regressive laws, in my views, of the European Union. We were able to do just that, keep the economy rolling, but always within the framework of international law. That's a great, great achievement. The third point I had is from a domestic perspective. India, the ruling party, managed to win in the heartland of India. That is extremely important because the heartland gave a clear signal that they agree with all the stupendous achievements of this government, particularly this year. The fourth was the amazing way in which we handled the fallout of Manipur, its potential for gravity in the northeast, keeping in mind the border with China, the manner in which we have plugged very successfully and very quietly infiltration across the porous border with Myanmar as the Myanmarese army gradually began to lose control over those areas. We have been able to manage the fallout of infiltration. And finally, the inauguration of the Ayodhya airport on 30th, the recognition all over the country that while for centuries others have celebrated the birthplace of their religion, we in India, with such a huge percentage of Hindus, were never able to commemorate and rejoice at the birthplace of Ram Lala, as they call it. Yesterday I asked someone, Rishabh, what Lala means, because it's different in Bengali, and they said it's because it's the child Ram, and
Yes.
that's why it's called Ram Lala.
Correct.
But there is more to come, that the inauguration itself is going to make Ayodhya a global and cultural hotspot, but it's also going to focus our attention on the fact that when we were colonized, we lost self-confidence. This government, through its many achievements, and particularly yesterday, has restored confidence in India.
Okay.
In all the aspects that needed to be rectified post-colonial.
Okay, so the reason Ram Mandir doesn't make it to our top 20 is because technically the inauguration is on January 22nd, 2024. General Katoj, what's on your list? What's your top 5, sir?
Thank you, Rishabh. Rishabh, this was one of the very difficult moments which I had, actually getting into a list of top 5. Professor Madhav Nalpat and Ambassador Mukherjee have given certain additional ones.
Yeah, you've been true to form, sir. You honestly picked from our list of 20. I appreciate it, sir.
I actually picked from your list because, otherwise we cannot really get on to a sort of a debate or a discussion.
Yeah.
But I will give you my top 5, but I want to give you the reasoning behind it. I think that's equally important.
Please.
Now, amongst the 5, and this is not in any particular order, but these are my top 5 picks. Chandrayaan 3. Now, why Chandrayaan 3? Of course, it was a unique mission. We are the first country to land on the south pole of the moon. It is a stupendous achievement. Only 3 countries have landed on the moon earlier. But I think it sends out a much larger message across the youth of India. You know, that scientific temperament which we are talking about, there is always that fear. Listen, can we do it? Can we not do it? I think that fear is over. The youths today are not thinking, can we do it or can we not do it? It's already a taken. We will do it. Now the question comes, how quickly can we do it? How quickly can we execute it? This is a mindset change. And that is why I rate the Chandrayaan-3 mission, a very successful mission of ISRO, in my top 5. The second one is, the UPI success story. Rishabh, how heartening it is when you go to a small street vendor, that chap is selling golgappas. And he says, Saab, aapka bill 15 rupees hai. And you pay him by the UPI method. And he receives it in the same manner. How empowering it is for every single Indian. It indicates two things. One, you've got a bank account. And number two, you are digitally reasonably well informed. I think when we're looking at empowerment, this one aspect of digital payments has empowered India to the maximum level possible. The earlier empowerment, I think, which took place, which of course is not part of this list, is when Narendra Modi said we are going to build toilets. That was empowerment. The UPI is a similar empowerment. And believe you me, very soon, there won't be a single individual who will not be using the UPI system. I pay my maid in the UPI because she feels comfortable in getting it this way, otherwise the husband may steal her money. So you look at various aspects of it, the UPI is a winner. As a military man, defense production crossing 1 lakh crore. Now, it may not appear that important to many people, but I want to put it in the historical context. Our defense production has always lagged. It's not that we lack the scientists or the talent, or, we've got very capable people there. The problem was in policies. And now that we have crossed 1 lakh crore, we are seeing that shift in policies. It's the resulting of the shift in policies. One, the private sector is getting involved in defense production. Two, you have opened it for exports. Now, why we didn't do it earlier was because everybody said, हम तो गांधी के देश के हैं, हम तो peaceful loving है. It is much like, a person went to the jungle and he said, nobody's going to eat me because I'm a vegetarian. And the tiger said, sorry, chum, I'm not. So, these things don't work. You've got to live in the real world. And I think this defense is going to be, over the next 10 years, the biggest game changer in our economy. I'm saying this with very, very seriously.
Yes.
Your exports can really cross phenomenal limits. But more importantly, you'll start making quality products for India. The job content, etc., the ancillary industries, etc., which are going to come up is tremendous. An increase of at least 1 to 2 points in the GDP is what defense production will give us. Article 370, legally it has put a closure to that case. The closure really came on August 2019. But legally, it is settled now. Now, I think this is very important because had the Supreme Court given some other decision and also stated, listen, we can't do anything about it now, we will continue with it, but it shouldn't have been done. This sore would have festered for another 100 years. Now it is closed. The Parliament closed it in August 2019, and legally, all the arguments have been taken care of by the Apex Court. I think that's a very important step, and we found no ripples at all anywhere in the Indian media or amongst the Indian public. I think this is a very welcome step.
Okay.
Because without removal of Article 370, there was no way in which you could get peace in Kashmir. People tell me it still hasn't come. I say, look at the situation prior to 2019 and look at the situation now. It is not Maggie noodles, there is no magic wand, but we are getting there, and this is the only way to do it. So I put this into my list. And my last one, the point is 50% of our workforce is women. Now, I'm surprised the ambassador didn't put it into her list. But the Women's Reservation Bill is vital. Once upon a time, I used to ask people, why aren't there any toilets on the road, on the highways? It is because there were no women drivers. If there were women drivers, that need would have come up. When women come into the workforce, they look at things in a different way. It cannot be totally male dominated because people just don't understand what the other half is living through. The Women's Reservation Bill is going to be a dramatic game changer. It is going to come up after 2 years, as you have stated. But this is going to be a dramatic game changer. And I wish over time it becomes 50%.
Okay.
Rishabh.
All right. Dr. Kohli, your shot at it, sir.
Well, I think, all the reasons and all the picks listed out by my co-panelists, I think you would appreciate there is economics behind everything, that we speak. There money, it's all about money, honey, as they say. So I think to not to be talking about economic achievements would be unfair. And coming from the world of economics, my picks are very, very clear, which you have been talking as well, that India becoming, the fifth largest economy, overtaking Britain, France, whatever, and we are on course to become the third largest. We are within stone's throw from overtaking, Germany and Japan. So my prediction is we'll get there very soon. But I think from being fragile five to being amongst the top five, for me is a huge achievement. Well, Aam Aadmi on the street may like to say कि हमको क्या मिला या हमारे लिए क्या हुआ. But little do they know that whatever prosperity that they have today, whatever facilities that they avail today, whatever infrastructure that they use today, it is all because we are the fifth largest economy in the world. And, a lot goes into making the fifth largest. So for me, top of the bucket, Rishabh, is that. And of course, I heard Major Katosh talking about the UPI payments, because I have been involved with the UPI payments from day one. 17,60,000 rupees payment in a month. That is 7.6 trillion rupee payment in 1 month. 1,140 crore number of payments. I think it's an envy for anybody across the world. And when G20 happened, Rishabh, what was the biggest talking point amongst the delegates? You'll be surprised, it was fintech. They were all talking about what magic have you done? And I saw these delegates, roaming around the town, trying their hand at scanning the QR codes, asking what is this lying here in the shop? How do we make a UPI payment and so and so. So I think fintech for me is number 2 on the bucket list for that matter. Then how can we forget IMEC? I picked up from, because all my items that I had in mind, most of them were in your list also, the IMEC, the India, Middle East, Europe corridor. I think this is an alternate to China's Belt and Road or whatever initiative or BRI, I think when this gets started, this is going to be the new spice route. And this is going to put India in a different league altogether. For me, that is, of course, because of the Gaza-Israel conflict, things may be delayed a little bit here and there. But I think all the nations who have signed the pact are very much committed to take this forward. Then how can we forget the Nifty and the Sensex, which you spoke of? From what you said, I'll add some more, lucrative numbers. People who invested in index, they generated 20% return. Imagine your bankers giving you 7-8%, and we are going gaga, wow, our senior citizens get 8.5%. I don't mean any disrespect to the bankers because that's as much they can give. But then 20% returns on Nifty, 19% returns on Sensex. I think, and this during the times when the global economy was facing headwinds. And very interesting thing, Rishabh, I would like to mention here. Normally, when the stock markets open in the morning, we take cues from the American markets. For the last few days, we are very much in 2023 as we speak just now. You'll be surprised that the American markets are taking cues from the Indian markets. It's been the other way around. So I think it is not just about Nifty and Sensex, but it's about Indian stock markets and India as such becoming a financial hub in the times to come. These are the signs that India has the potential to become the next financial hub. No Londons and New Yorks, who knows, it will be Mumbai and Delhi as the new, financial hubs. Then, the fifth take that I would like to do is the infrastructure push. Railways, airports, smart cities, highways, ports. I think these are the things, 100 lakh crore plus of commitment of government. Although somebody might say that this is this is a period-driven phenomena. It's not happened in 1 year. But whatever we achieve in 2023, I think has transformed. I remember in one of the debates, Rishabh, on your channel, somebody asked me that, Saab, country ka loan 55 lakh crore tha, or one of your sister channels, 55 lakh crore tha. Abhi to hum 155 lakh crore, 160 lakh crore ho gaye. I said, so what? Look at America. Look at the world's biggest economy. 1.25% is the debt to GDP ratio. We are still very much there. So, and if this money is being used for welfare of the people, in fact, one of the prime reasons, Rishabh, why today the world looks at India, why today India is the shining star, the prime reason is our push on infrastructure. It has generated jobs, it is bringing tourists, it's bringing investment, and this is having a multiplier effect on the economy. Each rupee invested, Rishabh, each rupee invested on infrastructure has got a 10 times multiplier effect, and that is the magic which is happening. So for me, these are the 5 takes. My list is very long, but then I was asked to choose 5.
Okay, all right. So we'll put the Mysuru Bengaluru highway and the Vande Bharat Expresses into the infrastructure launch of magic moments of the year. Sumit, what's your list of 5?
Rishabh ji, to you and all the panelists, a very happy new year in advance, and to all the viewers, thanks for having me for this important show. Well, I have 5 takeaways which are on the top of my mind. The first is 5th largest economy, and we have crossed the 4 trillion in GDP. That means we are stone throw from Japan and Germany. It's a matter of time. It's 1 month, 6 years. I think me and Dr. Kohli were on the debate. I think by next time this year, we will be the 3rd biggest economy, what the numbers look to be. That is where we have put our money on in the national TV. So we are almost inching there. So when we talk of the economy, you talk of infrastructure, you talk of development, you talk of service, you talk of Vande Bharat, you talk of getting everything right, from fragile 5 to top 5 and reaching to top 3, stones throw. 4 trillion is crossed. When Modi ji started, it was 1.8 trillion. In 9 years, he could put it to 4 trillion plus. So you have added your double GDP, what you could not do in 65 years, to 120% increase in 9 years. That is the first thing we should go, and it's across the spectrum. Second thing, what I think is the semiconductor push. Because if we don't have the semiconductors, for us to dominate the international markets, for us to achieve that 3 trillion ambitious target, for us to do $330 billion of exports, for us to be Atmanirbhar, for us to be self-reliant in cars, automobile, electronics, and even the war gear and the war machinery, semiconductor is the industry where we have to get, and the government's push on around $23 billion which is put on that, then PLIs and the other investments we're getting. And as the China is getting restricted to technology and even the machines used for making semiconductors, that big phenomenal window, which is $1 trillion window, put all the industries together, that is where India is getting itself placed into. So the delinking of supply chain, which is happening at alarming rate, India is poised to take where China used to be. So that's the point number 2. Point number 3, Rishabh ji, what I think, which is different from your list, is PFI surgical strike. This menace of PFI being invincible, having made in such a way you cannot do anything to them because they're a political party. Yeah, NGO bhi hai, ye bhi hai, wo bhi hai. They have connections with Pakistan, Turkey, Muslim Brotherhood and all. But when Mr. Amit Shah wanted, within 2-3 days, he dismantled PFI. The message is to all: fall in line, otherwise we know how to dismantle you. You can have a political party, you can have an NGO, you can be Chacha, Mama of anybody, you can be affiliate of Muslim Brotherhood, Erdogan, whoever is behind you, we know how to dismantle you in 3 days. And that is the phenomenal achievement of, Amit Baisha, because this menace has been hurting industry, country and society for last 15 years now. And then we needed somebody with the iron resolve to do a surgical strike because it could not be dismantled in pieces. That's point number 3. Point number 4 is G20. Rishabh ji, G20 put brand India in a different stature. That unanimous declaration was there. Mineral, this biofuels alliance. You had Emiratis in biofuel alliance, imagine. And then the North, the India, Middle East, European corridor, and so many things. After G20, after successful G20, when the whole world was literally in New Delhi and the Pakistanis and Chinese were really envying, though she did not come, that's okay. But we send a very powerful message to China. Look, the world will move on with or without you. Before that, it was conceived, if the China is not present in an international forum, you cannot have major agreements. You cannot have major decisions. No. Putin was not there, Mr. Lavrov was there, but China chose not to come. Still, all the major decisions happened, all the unanimous agreements happened, and 2 major important issues: this economic corridor and the biofuels alliance, which will set the world pace and trend to a different level. So India as a brand is elevated to a different level.
Okay.
And last,
Yeah,
defense
go ahead.
production.
Finish. Yeah, finish.
Last is defense production. Look, Rishabhji, if you're a superpower in making, you have to be Atmanirbhar on weapons. But you have to also capability to give weapons to your friends who need your help and support. Today, we are giving BrahMos to China, the Philippines. We are giving weapons to Vietnam. We are giving weapons to Armenia. India must have this capability not only to be Atmanirbhar, but to also give weapons and technology to the people who are your friends. Without weapons, you cannot have a geopolitical cloud in the world. You cannot be a superpower if you don't have capability to have lethal weapons and give it to the friendly nations to take care of your geopolitical interests. Arming Philippines, arming Vietnam, and countries around that is to put China under control. When China can do a string of pearls, we can do a necklace of diamonds. If China can arm Arakan's army, we'll go and arm Philippines. We'll arm Vietnam to the best of our capability. We are clear. And the last 5.5 point is 5.5 point बोलूंगा. Last point is ये 5.5 का शगुन है ना ऋषभ जी. The last point is muscular foreign policy coupled with muscular military capability building. That is the fifth and the last point. Muscular foreign policy.
Okay.
We are talking correct. We are talking straight,
Okay.
but also coupling the military might with it. That's the point.
Okay. Now, okay. So of the points here, I can tell you that the India-Middle East corridor was on a short list. I had said that, okay, let it happen. Let some concrete thing on the ground happen. Then we'll put it on the achievement list. Semiconductor, it's been a pet issue personally for me, professionally for me. Was also on the short list, but wanted that first foundation stone to be laid before we could check it off as a major milestone. But yes, the PLI itself, which of course has been in the works for a couple of years, has made it through to the budget and beyond. So that's another major milestone. Okay, let's get Professor Nalapat back. Professor Nalapat, on the big ticket item, and there's no denying it, many people agree with this, the big ticket item from which flows everything else, from which flows our diplomacy, our military might, our production, is the economy. And we talk about milestones because they are important, but can we feel it? Can we feel India changing, that we are now the fifth largest economy in the world?
Rishabh, the most important thing, and it's exactly what you say, is basically identifying the potential in our people and giving them an ambience to realize that potential. For a very long time, the problem has been in India that potential has been suppressed by a whole raft of colonial era, restrictions and regulations, which are essentially meant to suppress domestic production, suppress domestic initiative. I don't know why it took 65, 70 and odd years to remove these. But what I've seen in the last 2 or 3 years, certainly since 2019, is a very big push to basically get rid of that colonial legacy of regulatory suppression. I think that is a very, very important thing, because that means that the potential of our people is now finding pathways that did not exist before.
Okay.
The problem in India was very simply that many laws were kept to make it impossible to do anything unless you did it illegally. And if you do it illegally, then you're in the grip of some politician or bureaucrat, and you'll constantly get blackmailed by the individual, apart from your costs going up.
Okay.
So this is why Indian companies were not really able to compete. That is now being removed very, very quickly as we speak.
So, Dr. Kohli, on that point, everything flows from and flows into the economy. If your diplomacy is sound and you can manage to negotiate the better oil deals, that flows into the economy. And of course, as your economy grows, your ability to negotiate better deals improves. So there is a hinge point where a structural gear shift happens, that you're going slowly, and then suddenly you see exponential. You can call it bell curve and this curve, and I'm sure you have a example on that. But a structural shift happens. Other than the highlight, the headline, we are the fifth largest. Are we seeing that structural exponential shift happening?
Undoubtedly, Rishabh. In fact, the top 5 points listed by each one of the panelists, including me, they have their sub-points as well. There are outcomes, there are impacts, there are effects of this, and there are resultants of this. So within those resultants, there is a lot of things which can happen. I mean, for example, the way when Indians travel today to different countries, the perception, the way you're looked at, the way you deal with people, has drastically changed. I mean, you were treated as coming from a snake charmer's land, and today when you go there, you say, "Wow, you come from the world's fifth largest economy. You know, India has got this, India has got that. You know, you've got a very strong government. This, that." I mean, we hear a lot of good things, and the kind of respect which Indians are getting abroad, I think that has been very, very transformational. Of course, there's only people who travel can vouch. And Aam Aadmi on the road obviously cannot be speaking of this, but then they should be knowing that this is changing. That is one. Second, I think the aspirations of young Indians, Bishop. So one of the resultant of the points that we discussed, the aspirations of young Indians today are totally different. As one of my co-panelists said, the way it used to be before. Today, these startups, we have over 1 lakh startups. That's a different story that, a lot of these startups do not succeed. But, there are so many of startups coming up that even if we include the ones that fail, they try and come back in another field or with another project, with another business. So I think the resultant of these main headlines are multiple. We can just go on and on.
Okay, so I just want you to imagine it, and I've always appealed to your imagination. If you can think it, you can do it. General Katoch mentioned this in passing, but General Katoch, now for people watching the broadcast, the biggest drains on our exchequer, on our foreign exchange reserves are two items: oil and defense imports. These are the two biggest single point items that cost us the most amount of money, because we need to import the majority of these very expensive items from abroad. So when you go into solar, and I haven't mentioned the solar parks in this list, when you go into 20% ethanol, which definitely came into this list, when you do the defense production, and let me take the point of defense production with General Katoch. General Katoch, in the first get-go, you reduce the expenditure. So you start a penny saved is a penny earned in defense production. Then you start selling abroad. Now a single aircraft deal, a single missile system deal, a single tank deal, all of them are in the tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. There's a potential that very much before the decade is out, defense could be one of the principal foreign exchange earners for India. So when we say exponential, paradigm, structural shift, that's what we mean. Do you concur, sir?
Rishabh, absolutely. Starting with the defense first, the whole point was why didn't we start with empowering the defense sector since independence? Now, I had spoken to many people in the course of my career, and there was a lack of faith in the private sector of India. But the point is, when you are importing from, say, the West, from the United States, well, what are they? Are they going to serve your interests better than your own private sector, security-wise? The private sector in the West runs the defense industry. In fact, many people say they actually run the governments. They become that powerful. So there was a lack of faith. There was as far as this particular issue is concerned. But I think it was much more than a lack of faith. I think the people at the helm of affairs could not get their share of cuts if there was local defense production from government agencies. So the easiest option was to import, and then you get your 10-20% or whatever it is.
In some Swiss account somewhere,
Your coffers. So that is stopped now.
Yeah,
you
but,
see how
I just wanted to hammer home, okay, because there are certain people out there. You're going to be the entrepreneurs of tomorrow, engineers of the tomorrow. These are the sectors that earlier did not really exist, and if they existed, it was a sarkari naukri kind of affair, which are going to explode so fast because the demand is already there. The demand is near guaranteed. Now it's just about generating the supply, and there is a big initiative that the supply needs to be domestic. So it's going to happen, and just imagine, I'm waiting for it, and it's going to happen in a year, maybe take 2, maybe take 3, it might take 5. But when that first $100 million foreign defense deal is signed, where India is the net earner, because right now when we talk about defense deals, we talk about billions of dollars. Rafale was billions of dollars. Okay, it's $200 million per aircraft. Okay, do the math. It's all money going out. Okay, yes, a part of the production happens in India, but it's generally is money going out. Okay, imagine how exciting it will be. Okay, now let me get Sumit into this. Sumit, I'm going to go down a tack, and I'm going to put this map on our screens. We've had this discussion before. Ladies and gentlemen, 5G. Okay. Now, by no means are we trying to say that cent per cent in your house basement, you're going to be getting 300 Mbps download speed. Okay. But let's put this 5G map on our screens. Now, Sumit, when we began the 5G journey, we had just come out of a lot of chaos from 2G, spectrum confusion and chaos because of it. We had a weird thing that we just could not, we had so many regulatory problems and civil opposition problems कि हम टावर ही नहीं लगा पा रहे थे. Making a phone call had become impossible in this country. Then we added the added problem that Huawei was the 5G rollout champion of the world and we wanted to do it without them. We've done the 5G rollout faster than almost every single European country, faster than North America, at a scale that could not have been comprehended last year. A technological leap. How important has this been?
Rishabh, you know, when the Honorable Prime Minister in 2015 spoke of Digital India, people were wondering, "Ye hai kya? What is Digital India going to do?" Imagine Digital India without the kind of bandwidth availability we have and the cost of MB we have. The cost of GB or MB is lowest in the world today. The cheapest phone in the world is in India today. The maximum coverage in the world is in India today. Even we are doing this broadcast, I'm at home, somebody is at a office, where we are able to do because we have this 5G connectivity, which is available everywhere in India. We're able to do from a car. You know, gone are those days when you have to send a OB van with a cameraman and all to do this. There's no need to do it today. Now, Digital India, enablement of people, getting people into the mainstream, making so many things like telemedicine, remote surveillance, IPTVs, Netflix, things like that, which were impossible without this kind of a rollout and with this kind of a cost for GB or MB. So now we are producing the highest number. Now we're the second biggest producer of mobile phones in the world. 2013, we were importing 99% of the mobile phones, and 2023, 10 saal baad, we are exporting $10 billion worth of mobile phones. That is what has transformed. Look at the cost of MB in 2013 and look at the cost of 23.
Yeah,
it is
okay. So I'm going to put the reference map of the image on our screens once again very quickly if we can. So the top half of your screens is May 2022. Okay. There is almost nil 5G connectivity in India. The bottom is August 2023. Near cent percent, including in Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh, all through the northeast, all through the south, everywhere. Okay. Compare that to a dark Europe. Okay. And a near dark Rust Belt of America, a totally dark Canada, totally dark South America, and a nearly totally dark Nordic countries. Okay. Have a look at that. The quickest 5G rollout. So the quickest adoption of a technology that is the front and center of communications, and all of you probably watching this broadcast are somehow receiving it through some sort of 5G connection if you're watching it streamed online. Okay. The quickest rollout ever has happened in India, and not some achievement years, decades ago, which we are still hoping on. Okay. We've done it this year. Okay. Then of course you can argue 6G. Now let me get Ambassador Mukherjee into this on the question of the G20. Ambassador Mukherjee, now for people watching the broadcast, you can argue that look, the G20 is a rotational presidency. Everybody would have become president. You chose as a country to do it up and do it in a grand scale. Good for you. That's nice. I mean, but what does that really change? Nice you got an agreement. Happy to hear that. But what does that really change? What's changed?
What has changed is that international politics has changed. The Security Council is deadlocked. The United Nations does not reflect the power structure of today, but the G20 does. And the G20 under our presidency brought back the necessary emphasis on economic issues, which was which should have been done a long time ago. And the succeeding presidency, Brazil, has said that they would focus on digital. But more than that, the seamless ease with which our Prime Minister and the negotiating team of our Sherpa was able to get a consensus on Ukraine-Russia also demonstrates another important issue, which is they could have held on and stopped the success of the summit. But all major powers, including those on one side of the Russia-Ukraine conflict and the other, who were present in the G20, wanted India's presidency to succeed. For me, that is a huge statement. That shows that we are now at the high table. The Security Council does not matter anymore. We are at the high table where it matters. What our Prime Minister or what India says matters. Shortly after the G20, there were efforts made by the Canadian Prime Minister to hector us, lecture us, try to pull us down. We stood our ground. We never gave way. It did not detract at all from the success of the presidency on one hand and from India's global image that we will not be bullied at all. So I think that was another very important takeaway from the summit.
Okay.
You mentioned about the women's reservation bill. I just mentioned in passing. I deliberately did not put it in because personally, I believe as an empowered woman that I can do it without any help from any male.
Okay. All right. Okay, no takers, only live televisions. Nobody's going to interpret that as Ambassador Mukherjee filing her nomination for the Lok Sabha. Certainly not. We leave it to your good graces to make that call, ma'am. Okay, so one other issue I want to take up especially, and let me get Professor Nalapat into this. Professor Nalapat, I mentioned two big, strategically fundamental, important, whatever, epithet I can attach to it, okay? Oil, energy, okay? You can't power through your GDP growth if you can't feed the energy it is going to demand of you. Now, I've mentioned in this list the 20% ethanol mixing, okay, which is 20% ethanol mixing, ladies and gentlemen, means 20% reduction in what it would have cost you to import that fuel, okay. So don't look at it as 20% ethanol. Think of it as cost savings, okay. But in addition to that, it's the largest solar park. Of the top 5 solar parks in the world, 2 are now in India, okay. But the fact that we've negotiated the oil deals with the Russians, we have navigated, as Ambassador Mukherjee said, the issue that has happened in Ukraine. We've navigated even issues with Iran in the recent past. So energy security as a sum total, how important has it been for us in 2023, having seen Europe struggle with it?
Well, Rishabh, you're quite right. And the fact is that energy security was thrown into jeopardy as a consequence of the Russia-Ukraine conflict that began in 2022, early 2022. And India was one of the very few countries that escaped any jeopardy. And frankly, there were no sanctions levied on India. There were people like Ursula von der Leyen and others who were basically scolding India in public, but nothing was done. I mean, I don't mind anybody scolding in public, provided that person doesn't do anything substantive. And substantively, the fact is India is just too important now for people to distance themselves from. I think, therefore, we showed very clearly that we are very, very focused on the needs of the 1.4 billion people of India.
Okay.
And very importantly, because these people represent the global south, and we would like to bring their standard of living up. And I think, Rishabh, in the years to come, you're going to see the rupee emerge as a global currency, whether as a global store of value or even as a global unit of trade.
For sure.
I think over the next 2 or 3 years, we're going to see that.
For sure. I mean, you've just seen happen, the rupee transactions have started in the Emirates. I know there are some issues with the rupee transactions with Russia, but the reason is, of the 2 biggest imports you have, arms and oil, both of them you're getting in large quantities, or at least large quantities in terms of rupee value. So what are the Russians going to do with the rupees? They need to have as much demand from India for Indian products and services, and as soon as that happens, they'll be more than happy to do the rupee trade. Okay, I've just got a few minutes left before I let everybody go. So I'm going to highlight this because the one big seminal moment that we are all going to touch and feel, and I've given it the example of the record we set of 100 kilometers in 100 hours. But Dr. Sharat Kohli, we are seeing now new problems which a generation ago would not have noticed. A new problem is that today on India's highways, people are driving so fast that their tires blow up. So that causes accidents. That the highways have become so smooth and straight that people fall asleep at the wheel. So it causes an accident. I mean, on one end, we are talking about some dog or cow crossing the road and potholes and the highway simply vanishing at one point of time and it being a pedestrian zone. Look where we have come, and this is the milestone that literally everybody touches and feels.
Indeed, with the infrastructure growth, with the highways being built, Rishabh, I think a parallel movement has to start. When it comes to the civilization, then it comes to, like, for example, training the drivers, or all the beautiful things that we have built, Bharat Mandapam, anything and everything, airports, new railway stations. I think the habits, the way people deal with this infrastructure, the way people use this infrastructure, I think that awareness campaign, Rishabh, needs to be taken up right away. Because if we don't do that, this infrastructure will start crumbling sooner than we know. It's not going to last like a London tube station, which is going on for 100 years. It will not last 100 years. If we have people spitting on the walls, if you have people vandalizing the walls, I think along with the infrastructure development, Rishabh, very important point, very, very important. And I've been emphasizing this for a very long time. A parallel movement, a parallel initiative has to be done to educate the people, to how to use and preserve this infrastructure.
But build it nice. If you build a crappy thing, people treat it shabbily. The Delhi Metro is a good example. It's been operational now for the better part of 15 years. Okay, so long enough for it to have become a mess. It is relatively clean because it was built well, so people take civic pride in it, and that's the point that Sharad Kohli is trying to make here. So my time is short. I just want to get quickly Sumit peer into this. Sumit, we just saw the Ayodhya train station inaugural. Okay, the Ayodhya train station now looks better than New Delhi railway station. I know it's much smaller, but it looks like an airport. Now the highways, as I mentioned, it's something that we are all touching and feeling. We are all driving on. I'm sure you've driven on these highways, whether it's the expressway to Meerut, or it is the Agra expressway, or the now Eastern Peripheral Expressway, Western Peripheral Expressway. I mean, there are now every way you head out of Delhi, you're on a highway where you're being advised, please don't drive very fast, because you can if you choose to, and then your tire blows up. So that's a very odd kind of problem to be having.
Rishabh, these are the byproducts of development. Whenever you have a factory, you will have some waste which will be generated. You will have some toxic chemicals which will be generated. But when the development comes, it comes to the byproducts. The only thing is people have to be educated. National pride, sense of ownership, and taking pride in what you are. If people develop this habit, then all the problems will go away, because this is not the highway of the Sarkar. This is my highway. This is the highway of my state. It is my privilege to be on this country. Because my country is doing well, that is why I have this highway. If I'm born in Africa or if I'm born in Pakistan, then you can imagine what could I have had. Because I'm born in India, because I'm Indian, and because I have a good prime minister, I have a good government, that is why I'm giving this. That nationalism and sense of ownership, and along with if we associate the pride, people will become the guardians of good faith, custody, and moving the things around. Then all their discipline and all will come in. But if we have this notion, bhai sarkari highway hai, then it's all a different thing. It is my highway. It is my country.
Yeah.
It's about owning it up. It's as simple. Aap own kar lijiye, the problems will all vanish.
It's like the, yeah. Go ahead, ma'am. Finish your, make your interjection, ma'am.
The Prime Minister yesterday, Rishabh, spoke about the fact that he believes in Vikas and Virasat. I think that sums up the whole thing.
Yeah.
Vikas, development, Virasat, heritage. So the latter point is exactly what Dr. Sharad Kohli and Sumit were saying, which is you have to empower the Indian population about their heritage and keep it good to make it understand how it is linked with Vikas or development.
Yeah, and then trust them with it. Okay, we're going to make it well, and you're going to be so proud that it's so nice that you'll make an effort to keep it nice. Now, I know that's a sub point, but ladies and gentlemen, the reason we've had this telecast today is because all of you watching this broadcast, including all my panelists, all would have had personal milestones, trials and tribulations and plans ahead. Okay, but we are all in the same boat and we are in the same team. And it's a moment of reflection of national milestones, and there are countless. So we are putting all of these online. You can like to vote, and we'll come back with a telecast on what your popular verdict was. You've heard from our experts who sit with us all year, debate all these topics, and they've told you that their memorable moments, the ones they most fondly remember or they think the most impactful, what they were. We'll find out yours. You had a pretty much of a taste of me talking enough to find out mine. Thank you, and a very happy Romano-Gregorian New Year to all our panelists. Ambassador Mukherjee, Happy New Year. Sumit, Dr. Kohli, Professor Nalapat, and General Katoch. See you all in the new year, and to our viewers, season's greetings to you as well.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.